I lived in Pennsylvania, just outside the city of Reading. There's plenty of thick forests around here, but nothing ridiculous, and it's mostly suburbs where I'm at. Farther out, it's highways and farmlands. Lucky for me, I lived right up at the edge of a small community at the very top of a hill. The forest is literally across the street from me. Anyway, a few years back, my dad and I were outside having a personal chat about some recent tough events going on in my house, when suddenly we heard a weird sound in the forest across the road. We both stopped and looked over. "I didn't think deer came out this late," I said. My dad just stared and looked kinda confused. Then we suddenly heard someone yell something like, "Help! I'm bleeding!" We both sat there staring into the woods where it came from. My dad stood up and said to get inside. We both rushed in, and I watched him run upstairs to grab his handgun. Something was definitely going down. I opened our back door again to the deck. It was a sliding glass door, and I peeked back out towards the forest to see if anyone would come sprinting out or something. Keep in mind, we're at the edge of the suburbs, and not exactly used to hearing people scream bloody murder out in the middle of the night. Then I heard it. This loud, weird screech. It sounded halfway between a cat and a woman shrieking, though it definitely wasn't human. It was weird, like it was high-pitched, but not, and filled the entire neighborhood for a full 10 seconds before it suddenly went silent. I slammed the glass door shut and ran to the stairs just in time to see my dad stomping down in boots with his pistol. "Did you hear that?" I asked him. He just nodded, and we both head out the front. By now, a bunch of our neighbors were coming outside too. The scream was really loud, but I didn't expect all the neighbors to come out this late. It was almost midnight. My dad went down to the street and looked up at the forest. Another guy came up to my dad. I watched them start chatting for a bit, until suddenly another one of those screams pierces the air again. It went on for something like another 10 seconds, and just suddenly cut off. Everyone was feeling sick to their stomachs after that. Like idiots, my dad and my neighbor decided to point their guns towards the forest and head in. I couldn't believe it. I mean, my dad is a hunter, and he's been doing it since he was a kid. He was almost 40 at the time. But I'd be damned if I'd do something like that. They must have been in the forest for a good 20 minutes together, searching the darkness for God knows what. I sat outside with a bunch of neighbors that entire time, staring into the forest, and waiting. Eventually they came back just fine. They stuck together the entire time according to my dad, and thought they saw something like a tall guy in the forest at some point. When they tried to see if he was the one screaming, apparently he got on all fours and hauled out of the forest. We were all pretty shaken up, but parted ways and headed back to our houses. That was pretty weird, and no police or anything ever checked it out, but eventually we all moved past it. A long while after that, there was a separate incident that I didn't exactly connect to the first right away. Later that year, I was sitting outside with my friend on the back porch. We were talking and having a pretty solid time when I saw my cat Jinx pawing at the glass window. "What a stupid cat," my friend said. I agreed with him, and then played with the cat a bit by putting my finger on the window while it pawed at it from the other side wherever it went. Later on that night, I was in my room playing a game with my window open. My cat was somewhere in the house, so I know he was fine. It's important to note that my neighborhood had a real problem with stray cats, though. Anyway, I was sitting there playing some games with my window open, when I heard what sounded like a cat meowing outside. I paused my game, wondering if Jinx had gotten outside at some point, and went to my window to listen. I heard that meow again, but it was a long, deep one. The kind that you hear from a cat when they're angry and backed in a corner with all their claws out. I recognized it wasn't my cat, but it was still coming from the woods behind my house, So I stared off into the woods in that direction, trying to see whatever was making that stray cat so upset. The cat made that long, angry growl again, and it sounded sorta close to my actual yard. I heard some shuffling in the woods, and then something weird happened. I thought I could hear someone talking, except it wasn't like a normal person's voice. It was like some drunk, mentally unstable person trying to mimic someone else really poorly. It was something like, "Stupid cart." Immediately I got creeped out a bit, but seeing as how my window was on the second floor, I felt fairly safe to keep listening. Then I realized the voice was changing. "Stupid cat." It clicked. It sounded like it was trying to copy my friend from earlier, but failing miserably. Then there was a serious scuffle. I heard twigs breaking, and the cat just goes crazy. I mean, it was really screeching and hissing, like it was fighting for life or death. Then there was this loud thumping sound. It was like something big and heavy, smacking against something else solid. After that, the meowing stopped completely, and whatever was out there went dead silent. I was pretty creeped out by that point, and I shut my window. It was really tough to sleep that night. There was one more incident, and I probably wouldn't have made too much of it if it weren't for all the stories I read that are similar to this type of thing online. I was getting a drink late one night, and thought I saw someone crouching really low on my back porch and looking into my glass door. Like I saw the light reflect off their eyes, sort of like when you see an animal at night. The only thing was, the eyes were certainly bigger than an animal's, and just a little too big to be a human's. And thinking back on it now, a human's eyes don't tend to glow like that. After that, I never really slept that well in that house, knowing that whatever that thing was still out there, biding its time, waiting for an unlocked door, or hoping to lure one of us out.